Hello, students, and welcome back to the Advice with a Pro series. Here with us today, we have Mr. Daubenspeck from Abington Senior High School. He teaches computer science, AP computer science, as well as computer networking. So he's here to give us some of his time today in order to learn a little bit more about computer science and how it can apply to jobs in the future, and maybe give us a little bit of insight for our food truck project. So, Mr. Daubenspeck, thank you for being with us today.
Hey, hi.
All right, we'll jump right in with our first question then. So our first question here is pretty broad, so you can kind of pick and choose whatever pieces you'd like to touch on. So it says, how is computer science and technology just shaping the world around us? How do businesses and people from other careers use computer science in their everyday lives? So how is it kind of applicable to all of us, even maybe if we're not going into a very computer science specific career?
Okay. Well, the first thing actually, when a lot of people think about computer science or major in computer science, they assume that those folks are actually going to go on and work for Google, work for Facebook, work for Microsoft, work for Apple, and they're going to be computer programmers and they're going to build software, and that's pretty much what they're going to do. I think what you have to recognize about computer science is that it can be pretty much the skills of computer science can be integrated pretty much into any discipline. And so, I usually tell my students, find what you're passionate about and, see how could computational thinking that we learn in computer science, how that can apply to your area. Sports marketing, physics, chemistry, biology, arts and entertainment are all disciplines that students at Abington have gone on to and actually integrated their computer science knowledge into. So, yeah, did I answer that question?
Absolutely. So to kind of follow up on that, leads us into our second question a little bit. How can technology like this and computer science skills help businesses be successful? So our students are building food trucks right now. They've made a business plan. They've been working with finances and kind of exploring these, multiple different career paths in our food truck. But how can computer science, technology in general, help businesses to build their clientele and run successfully?
Yeah, well, think about the food truck project. I imagine that you're going to be doing research about potential customers, potential areas where you're going to be setting up, and you want to kind of analyze that data, analyze that research about perhaps the geographic area that you're setting up at, perhaps the potential demographics or the types of people that are going to be in that geographic area. Computer science and computing skills will help you actually analyze that data. And, I'm not talking about just dumping the data into a spreadsheet and, doing some sorting of the data. Going in, building functions that actually truly analyze the data so that you can extrapolate even more information to actually help you be more successful, obviously, and hopefully more profitable. So, yeah, and you folks, you hear it all the time about data. The whole world is data. We make decisions based upon data. Artificial intelligence that you hear about is based upon machine learning, which in turn is based upon data. So yeah. So, anyway.
That's great. So it sounds like you're saying that all of our world is already around this computer science, so integrating it into our lives is important. So even if students, like you said, are maybe not going to work for Google or going to work for Facebook, why should people learn to use this technology in their daily lives, and how could it make them successful in their careers?
Yeah, and as I was saying before, pretty much no matter what field you go into, data, dealing with data is going to be a thing. And how those people who actually know how to manage and manipulate or analyze the data specifically for their field that they're passionate about are going to be very successful. As I tell my students, obviously you could go to somebody, you could go to strictly a computer science person who understands just computer science and maybe get them to help you. But, with you having the skills, the computational skills in order to do it yourself, the data better than they do, or the data better than I do because this is an area that you're passionate about. So you basically, being the person who builds the models and so forth are, would be the perfect solution to it. You coming up with a solution is by far better, and it's going to be a better solution than perhaps you going to somebody who maybe helps you out a little bit with the coding and stuff of it.
So when students then can kind of have these personal skills and those, that individual knowledge of their business or their job or whatever it is, you're saying that they would be able to come up with a better solution to their own problems by having these computer science skills.
Sure. And you know what? It's not a matter, and again, going back to what I tell my students, it's not, I know most of my students are not going to graduate with computer science degrees. My hope is that many of them will get a concentration or a certificate in computer science. I think a lot of schools have a certificate program. Some schools call it a minor, and so my hope is that the students will go on and actually, get those types of, continue to take those kinds of courses that help reinforce and make them better at their current job.
All right. So the last question we have for you, you touched on a little bit at the beginning. So you mentioned that the skills that are related to computer science and in computer science and kind of computer and technology field, the skills that students can build there will help them in future careers, whether or not they're actually going into careers in science and technology. So what skills or personality traits can students get from computer science, and what skills and personality traits do you think would make students successful in that type of a career?
Yeah. Well, the one misnomer that's been around computer science for decades is this whole idea that people who have computational skills are gamers or are nerds, and nothing has changed more so than that perception. People who are outgoing, people who are have a wide array of interests are ideal for perhaps a traditional computer science career. So that's one thing I want to actually make sure that we understand there. In terms of actually skills or specifically courses to help kind of help you out with this, obviously math is a big deal. But you know what? Not necessarily, calculus. It's not necessarily Calc 1, Calc 2, Calc 3, and all that stuff. Taking statistics is a wonderful course, all right? Because I was talking about data, and obviously statistics actually deals with data. So understanding that, eventually, some of the other math courses, that you certainly could take would be things like more advanced algebra, all right, and getting into things like linear algebra, which is, like a different kind of algebra. So, so it's pretty diverse actually in terms of how you can approach it.
Typically too, when I think of computer science and, from the little experience I've had with people who work in that kind of field or who've taken those courses, it seems like it's a lot of problem solving and analytical skills and just kind of, being able to think creatively when trying to solve a problem or to create a program. Would you say that that's kind of true to the nature of students who maybe are even interested in computer science, but maybe don't want to go into the career?
Sure, absolutely. I agree 100%. I mean, the one thing I would encourage you or, your students to do, I usually direct people to this competition called the North American Computational Linguistics Olympiad. That's a mouthful. It sounds incredibly nerdy, but what it is basically using computational skills to understand languages. So you oftentimes you don't actually kind of equate computation with linguistics or language, but there's a field of study called computational linguistics, which basically uses computational reasoning and logic in order to decipher languages. Like for instance, languages in the world that have never been translated before. You know, so who would be best served to basically figure out how to translate these like hidden languages? Believe it or not, people with computational skills. All right, you'd think, well, no, it would probably be better served for people who are multilingual and so forth. Well, of course, those folks are great too. All right, but being able to basically deduce, what something might mean through logic and reasoning, which is what we do in computer science, would be great. But yeah, it's the acronym is NACLO. A huge supporter of it is Google, because if you think about Google, what does Google do? Google tries to figure out what you mean by what you're typing in. So you start typing stuff in at Google, and basically it analyzes the text that you're typing in, and it tries to figure out what it is that you mean, or what you're trying to say, or perhaps what you actually want from the input that you're putting in. So anyway, I kind of went off on a tangent there. So.
No, that's great. So if any of our students here listening to this video are interested in, taking a computer science class in 10th grade up at the high school, what would you recommend that they look for or talk to their guidance counselors about? If any of this has sounded interesting to them, what options do we have for them?
Yeah, the number one course I'd recommend all incoming 10th graders to take would be AP, or Advanced Placement Computer Science Principles. And for the most part, almost many incoming 10th graders are highly qualified to jump right into the Advanced Placement Computer Science Principles course. So that would be the one, because if you're currently taking geometry in 9th grade, that would mean that in 10th grade you're taking Algebra 2 and Trig. You folks would be ideal for jumping right into the Advanced Placement program. Now, don't be intimidated by that. Yes, it is advanced placement, but ultimately this particular advanced placement course called Computer Science Principles is kind of like an intro course to computer science. There are other more advanced courses beyond that. If this is something that you're like thinking, wow, this is pretty cool, I want to continue with it and actually explore it at a higher level, you certainly can do that. But I mean, imagine as a 10th grader being able to take an advanced placement course. How cool is that, actually? So yeah, that's what I would recommend.
So students, if any of that sounded interesting to you, if you're looking for maybe a way to jump into the advanced placement or AP course world without, kind of biting off more than you can chew, this sounds like a really great intro course for you to take. So if you're interested in getting more information, if you have any questions, we will have Mr. Daubenspeck's information listed up here in the video. And obviously you can reach out to him or to any of his computer science students through some of the resources we're going to have linked for you. So Mr. Daubenspeck, thank you so much for being with us here today.
Sure.
And for
thank you.
Students a little bit of intro into the computer science world.
All right, great. Thank you.